What if the fiercest explosion on the Mad Max Fury Road set wasn't forged from petrol or pyrotechnics at all, but from a single breath Tom Hardy couldn't catch? Picture Namibia's skeleton coast just before sunrise, a bone-white salt pan stretching into oblivion, the war rig's silhouette clawing at a bruised sky, and Hardy, already welded into Max's cracked leather. Standing so still, a crane operator later swore he mistook the actor for part of the scenery. A production assistant jogs over, dutifully hands him a prop dog tag to wear for a blink-and-miss shot. Hardy flips it between two dusty fingers, then freezes. A name is stamped there, the name nobody on that billion-dollar film could possibly know. Private Callum Price. Cameras keep rolling, sun keeps climbing, but Hardy's expression hollows as if some hidden detonator counts down behind his eyes. No one else on the call sheet notices right away. The desert offers too many mirages to chase every flicker. Yet 2 minutes later, Hardy stalks up to director George Miller and, voice raw as rusted steel, says he needs 60 seconds of absolute silence before every take from now on. Not a suggestion, not a method acting lark, an oath. Miller, who's older than most dust on that salt pan, studies the request and sees something in Hardy's stare he hasn't seen since Mel Gibson snarled to life decades earlier. A man cornered by ghosts. Miller shrugs once. 1 minute can't bankrupt a shoot, and agrees. Nobody realizes those 60 seconds will stretch the entire project across a chasm no schedule planner could predict. Crew radios crackle with confusion. Charlize Theron lifts an eyebrow but nods permission. Stunt performers, war boys painted chalk white in 44-degree heat, exchange glances, half amused, half spooked. A minute of hush in a racket-drunk production. It feels like switching off life support to check if the patient still breathes. And precisely at dawn, they try it. Engines idle, wind machines pause. Hardy stands facing a jagged ridgeline to the west, thumb pressed to the dog tag hidden beneath Max's chest rig, lips almost moving, but not. Sunlight needles across chrome. Somewhere off camera, a lizard chirps, the only creature rude enough to break the pact. Then a clapboard snaps, and Fury Road roars back to life, as if waking from a nightmare it refuses to recount. Nobody knows it yet, but that tiny ritual marks the first pulse in a chain reaction that will shatter stunt timetables, rewrite safety doctrines, and scar Hardy's psyche deeper than any role he has ever worn. Because the name on that tag belongs to a 19-year-old private left behind in a different wasteland, the one Hardy once tried to outrun in real desert fatigues, until the movies offered him leather and myth instead. And myths, as Hardy is about to discover, don't bury ghosts, they just cast longer shadows. Development is 2,000 words. Day, 9:11:20 a.m. Heat so vicious microfiber windshields melt against camera glass. They're shooting the chain fight. Max throttled by Furiosa, wrists bound to a half-dismantled V8 bar. Reset after reset. Hardy keeps drifting a meter past his sand-taped mark, dragging Charlize into unscripted territory. She stays with him, veteran of her own silent storms, but her eyes warn stunt boss Guy Norris. Something's off. On the fourth drift, Hardy's cuff seam rips, slicing his wrist. Blood spatters gypsum dust. The medic jogs forward. Hardy waves him off, gaze locked west again, where that ridgeline cuts the horizon like a wounded shark fin. Charlize finally asks, "What do you see out there?" He answers without blinking. Somebody who never got to finish his last sentence. Crew chalk it up to method. The medic sutures Hardy's wrist under a sunshade and leaves a white bandage as conspicuous as guilt. By nightfall, the story of Hardy's minute has morphed into campfire legend. Extras lower their voices inside catering tents. A war boy plucks discarded set foam and fashions his own dog tag, then hides it after nightmares crack his sleep open like dry branches. Week 3 detonates. They've built the sand tornado rig, 4 industrial wind machines, 2 flame bars, diesel pressure lines spiderwebbing the ground. The scene requires Max and Furiosa to drive straight into a dust funnel, a ballet of chaos only controlled through timing. First rehearsal, flawless. Second, a lightning sheet drops a weld. Its edge flaps like furious tin. Sparks spit toward a leaking diesel valve. The AD shouts cut, but sparks are faster than words. Hardy sees them first. Smell of cordite pinches his memory, and leaps from the cabin. Instead of grabbing an extinguisher, he yanks his dog tag free, slams the cool metal against the copper valve collar, grounding the spark. Flame guttered, explosion aborted. Crew surge forward, some cheering, some cursing safety breaches. But Hardy isn't listening. He's down on one knee, breathing like a man hauling a coffin up a hill, whispering, "Still here, Price? Still here." Charlize hears every syllable, sees his eyes drowning in something deeper than adrenaline. Later in her trailer, she scribbles the words on a makeup wipe she will keep in her wallet for years. "Still here, Price." Insurance auditors land 2 days later, buzzing like blowflies over liability forms. Miller labels the incident Actor Initiative and personally escorts them off set before they can photograph the improvised dog tag ground. Warner execs fire off warning emails. The shoot can't afford delays, but the crew now treats Hardy's minute of silence like a superstition they dare not break. Every dawn, heads bow. West, always west. Night 34. Call sheet bleeds into double overtime. They're filming the foot chase across the salt pan. Temperature has nosedived. Sand crunches like glass. Charlize raps after her coverage. Hardy stays to drill a fight beat with stunt double Ben Smith-Peterson. Under stadium lights, they rehearse an elbow strike dodge. On take 3, Smith-Peterson misreads Hardy's line of sight, those eyes still pinned to that ridge, and catches Hardy's elbow under the jaw. The crack echoes into dunes. Blood from the stuntman's split lip paints Hardy's forearm. Crew scramble. Ben laughs, unhurt, but Hardy staggers back 2 steps and collapses into kneeling position, palms pressed to salt as if in prayer. Silence again. Unscheduled, absolute. The generator hum fades beneath wind. 10 meters away, Charlize, still in wig cap, watches, pressing both hands together like she might squeeze courage from her own pulse. Hardy murmurs something none of them decode, stands, bows to Ben, and asks for another take. They nail it clean. Miller yells cut, crew clap relief. Hardy disappears into the dark, frost smoke spiraling from his mouth, and doesn't re-emerge for half an hour. When he returns, his eyes are emptied of something black, but the whole set feels lighter too, as if whatever haunted him just took its first measured step toward nightfall's edge. 3 a.m. wrap. A war boy finds Hardy sitting alone on the rig roof, scribbling in a battered notebook. The extra jittery with caffeine and hero worship, asks for advice on staying fearless in camera crashes. Hardy closes the notebook, hands it over without a word. The kid scans, pages filled with half letters to Private Callum Price, some joyful, most jagged. The final entry stops mid-sentence. "If I outrun this desert, meet me where the ocean," no period, no signature. Hardy retrieves the book, taps the incomplete line, and says, "Every unfinished sentence demands an answer." Send-off day arrives. Cast and crew gather for a wrap photo against a blood-orange dawn. Costume team plan a giggle. They've printed a dozen prop dog tags with cast names to hand around last minute. As they approach Hardy, surprise props dangling, Charlize intercepts and shakes her head. She points to the western ridge. 60 seconds left. They obey. The official rap celebratory bombast erupts that night. Industrial speakers, flaming guitars, beer kegs stacked like lost ammo crates. Hardy nurses water, mindful of the old edge alcohol gives shadows. Charlize corners him near the catering truck and says, "The silence worked, but you still look like a man waiting for orders." Hardy shrugs. Orders arrive 16 years late. He thanks her for holding the chain when his wrists forgot the choreography. She presses the makeup wipe, the one scrawled, "Still here, Price," into his palm. "Don't wait for desserts to finish stories," she says. Post-production devours 18 months. Editors sift explosions from dust, peel meltdown takes from final cut. Not a frame reveals Hardy's haunted minutes. The ritual exists only in call sheet margins and private diaries. Press junkets, though, smell adrenaline and blood. First question, in Los Angeles. Rumor says you insisted on a silence cult to keep your temper down. True? Hardy smiles like a man whose armor still fits but no longer pinches. Sometimes a loud film needs quiet lungs, he says. They push for more. He deflects with praise for Miller's listening direction. London premiere. Red carpet barricades groan under fan weight. Paparazzi squall. Hardy strides out in midnight blue velvet. Bandaged wrist, long healed, but hidden under cufflinks. A reporter shouts, "Hardy!" Toughest stunt on Fury Road. He pauses, thumb finding the dog tag through silk lining. Eyes glint. "The stunt you survive is never the toughest," he says, then steps inside the cinema before follow-ups land. The movie detonates around the world. Think pieces dissect toxic onset rumors. Hardy ignores them. Instead, he flies to a decommissioned RAF airbase turned veterans hospice in Suffolk, unannounced, offering to repaint corridors between screenings. Staff balk. Star power needs paperwork. He rolls paint anyway. A wheelchair-bound corporal asks if Hardy still hears engines at night. Hardy answers, only when memories stall on the highway. The corporal laughs like shellfire. 3 months later, Hardy funds the Price and Clark Initiative, named for Callum and a sergeant the world never heard of, to quietly bankroll therapy programs for soldiers stranded between war zones and civil life. No PR launch, no press release, until investigative bloggers link corporate filings to Hardy's legal team. Headlines howl, Tom Hardy's secret vet fund. Hardy's publicist begs for comment. He issues one line, the minute of silence grew up. Donations triple overnight. A streaming giant offers 8 figures for a limited series, dramatizing the haunted production of Fury Road. Hardy reads the first script page, all feral gossip, zero truth, and mails it back with 2 words inked in red, still unfinished. He chooses a different project, a no-budget short, filmed in an abandoned bus depot, featuring 7 veterans reading love letters they never sent before deployment. Before each monologue, he calls for 60 seconds of quiet. Every crew member now knows why. They bow their heads, face west, even indoors. Ghosts deserve coordinates. Charlize attends the private screening. In the final shot, a 60-year-old medic repeats Hardy's phrase, "Still here, Price," then allows the camera to linger on his silent tears. When credits roll, Charlize grips Hardy's arm, same arm she chained on the salt pan, whispers, "Finished yet?" He shakes his head. She smiles. "Good. Stories worth telling don't end, they echo." There's a rumor that if you drive west out of Swakopmund before dawn, pull off the gravel track at kilometer marker 46, and kill your engine, you can still hear a hush crawl across the desert each morning, exactly 60 seconds long. Truckers swear radios glitch. Jackals stop howling. Even the wind drops a gear. Nobody times it except old location scouts who know the myth. Tom Hardy's Ghost Minute etched itself into the landscape like tire scars that refuse to fade. Whether the myth matters to box office analysts is irrelevant. It matters to the men and women who once painted themselves white beneath that same sun. To a director who gambled a minute of sound for a lifetime of resonance. To a global star who finally learned the difference between living loudly and living honestly. Because Hardy no longer outruns desserts on screen, he revisits them on purpose, scanning horizons for unfinished sentences only he can complete. And the dog tag? It sits in a glass shadow box inside Hardy's study, untarnished but unpolished. Above it, framed, hangs that same makeup wipe Charlize handed him. Ink faded, message intact, "Still here, Price." When visitors ask, he offers tea but never explanation. If they press, he escorts them to the garden at dusk, sets a 1-minute timer on his phone, and invites them to breathe. Some start fidgeting after 20 seconds. Some cry before 30. All fall silent at 45, as if remembering someone they'd rather resurrect than forget. When the timer buzzes, Hardy pockets the phone and says, "Now you know what a minute can hold." He doesn't speak of Callum. He speaks for 20 seconds. Some cry before 30. All fall silent at 45, as if remembering someone they'd rather resurrect than forget. When the timer buzzes, Hardy pockets the phone and says, "Now you know what a minute can hold." He doesn't speak of Callum. He speaks to him. Every dawn, west-facing balcony catching the first bruise of light. 5 words, whispered like ignition. "Morning, brother, still marching." Then he steps into whatever role the day demands. Father, filmmaker, veterans advocate, myth. Knowing the real wasteland isn't outside, but the memory lane we barricade with noise. Somewhere a streaming algorithm calculates Hardy's star value by screen time and trending hashtags. It can't measure the minute he buys for silence, can't monetize a hush set, can't quantify how many soldiers seek therapy after stumbling across an anonymous short film where an actor you barely glimpse teaches them that grief doesn't expire, it evolves. Industry metrics declare the Fury Road shoot a triumph of controlled chaos. Hardy knows it as the battlefield, where he finally stopped apologizing to a dead 19-year-old and started listening to him instead. If you still crave a tidy ending, you won't get it here, because every tale Hardy tells now ends unfinished by design. A deliberate Zeigarnik scratch that keeps listeners walking forward, seeking the rest of the paragraph in their own breath. Legacy isn't a curtain call, it's an echo. And if you ever stand beneath Namibia's bruised dawn and dare to hold your voice for 1 full minute, you might catch that echo riding the first wind through salt and silence. A promise hammered into steel long before cameras rolled, not losing anyone. Months rolled. Hardy turned 45. One morning, he gathered those hundreds of unfinished letters, scanned every page, and built an interactive installation for a Veterans Art Trust gallery. Words projected onto shifting desert sand underfoot. Visitors stepped across sentences, Motion sensors revealed the next line only when someone dared to stand still long enough. Opening night drew critics expecting catharsis porn. They shuffled uneasily when confronted with gaps, half sentences flickering to black when they moved too fast. A teenage cadet lingered in one silence for 4 straight minutes, tears wetting his khaki collar. Hardy watched unseen from a balcony and knew the exhibit was working. Zygarnik turned into geography you had to inhabit to complete. The following spring, George Miller invited cast and key crew to a private anniversary screening in Sydney's IMAX, billed as nothing more than family drive. As seats filled, Hardy requested the lights stay dim an extra 60 seconds before the film. Theater staff balked. Timelines, sponsor ads, but Miller smiled the old desert shrug. They agreed. Audience chatter dimmed, soft drinks fizzed, then hush flooded the cavernous room. 50-foot screens dormant, phones pocketed. The silence felt like a cathedral breathing. Some thought a technical snag stalled the projector. Charlize, seated 2 rows behind Hardy, put both palms over her ears in muscle memory. At second 45, a small electronic chime sounded. Hardy's phone time. Lights faded entirely. Engines on screen erupted. A stunt rigger later confessed that minute made him taste the red dust again, smell the diesel, remember why he'd risked bones for art. Not every echo landed kindly. Online gossip vultures recut the silent minute into conspiracy mashups, claiming Hardy led a desert cult. He ignored them. When a talk show host pressed, he replied, "If grief is a cult, membership's compulsory." Ratings dipped. The host changed topics to pets. Near Christmas, Hardy visited the Veterans Hospice where he'd painted walls. He found the wheelchair-bound corporal, now learning to walk short lengths with braces. They strolled the corridor Hardy once coated in eggshell blue. "Funny," the corporal said. "Color's peaceful, but you picked the hardest pigment to keep clean." Hardy grinned. "Peace needs maintenance." Before leaving, he taped a handwritten note under the corridor clock. "Silence due hourly. Remember who got us here." Staff kept it. Alarms ping discreetly every 60 minutes. Patients choose whether to heed them. 2 years on, a new crew preps desert vehicles for a Mad Max prequel. Hardy, not cast, drives out one rehearsal day with a trunk full of iced water and shade tarps. Younger actors mob for selfies. He obliges, then requests a favor. "Before your first ride tomorrow, give me 60 seconds. Dawn breaks. Engines idle. Dust yawns awake. And Hardy leads 30 strangers in facing west toward nothing but shimmering horizon. He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. When the minute ends, a 17-year-old stunt biker removes his helmet, eyes wet. "Felt like someone stood next to me," he says. Hardy claps his shoulder. Then the rituals work. Back in London, Hardy keeps the twin dog tags on a nail above his desk, where scripts pile like unopened letters. One evening, his son asks why 2. Hardy answers, "Because survival is lighter when shared." The boy fingers the metal, eyes wide, and asks if ghosts ever sleep. Hardy thinks of deserts that hold their breath, of salt flats that remember footfalls, of minutes that demanded witness until they birthed an echo big enough to live in. He tucks his son into bed, whispers a promise. They sleep when we stand watch. Then he returns to his desk, sets a timer for 60 seconds, and begins writing a story where the last line won't end halfway to nowhere.